The Blue Nile is a powerful river. It begins its long journey in the highlands of Ethiopia, tumbling down from Lake Tana. The river is a force of nature. It carries water and rich sediment. That sediment has nourished lands for thousands of years. It travels across Ethiopia, then it flows into Sudan. In Khartoum, it meets the calmer White Nile. Together, they become the Great Nile River. The Nile continues north through Egypt's deserts. Finally, it reaches the Mediterranean Sea. This path has defined civilizations for millennia. The river is more than a line on a map. For millions along its banks, it is the source of life. The fate of this river ties three nations together. The story of the modern Nile dispute has a clear starting point. In the year 2011, Ethiopia announced its ambitious plan to the world. The country began construction on a colossal project on the Blue Nile, located not far from its border with Sudan. This project is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, often known simply as the GERD. It is a gravity dam, one of the largest on the African continent, designed with one primary purpose in mind. Its goal is to generate a massive amount of electricity, transforming Ethiopia into a regional powerhouse of energy production and distribution. For Ethiopia, the GERD is a symbol of national pride and a cornerstone of its development strategy. The nation has long argued that it has a fundamental right to use the resources within its own borders for the betterment of its people. With a large and growing population, and with many citizens living without access to reliable electricity, the dam is seen as a necessity. Ethiopian leaders explain that the project will power homes, hospitals, schools. It will also fuel industrial growth, create jobs, and offer a path toward a more prosperous and stable future for the entire country. This ambition, however, did not emerge in a vacuum. For many decades, the use of the Nile's water was governed by colonial-era treaties. Agreements from 1929 and 1959 allocated the vast majority of the river's flow to Egypt and Sudan, leaving almost no formal share for upstream countries like Ethiopia, where most of the Nile's water originates. Ethiopia has never recognized these treaties as binding. It has long viewed them as unjust relics of a colonial past that unfairly restricted its own development. The decision to build the GERD was, in part, a powerful statement against this old order. The dam itself is an engineering marvel, a vast wall of concrete and steel designed to hold back a tremendous volume of water. The reservoir created behind the dam is expected to hold more than 70 billion cubic meters of water when it is completely full. This process of filling the reservoir is one of the most contentious aspects of the entire project. How quickly the reservoir is filled directly impacts the volume of water that continues to flow downstream. Ethiopia's goal has been to start generating electricity as soon as possible, which requires filling the reservoir in stages over several years, a process that began in 2020. The hydroelectric dam has changed the old dynamics. It raises questions. Who has the right to the water? How should the water be shared? What will the future of this vital resource look like? For Egypt, the Nile River is not just one resource among many. It is everything. Egypt is one of the most arid countries in the world. It depends on the Nile for more than 95% of its fresh water. This water is essential for agriculture. Agriculture employs millions and ensures the nation's food security. It is vital for industry. It is vital for municipal services. It is vital for the daily life of over 100 million citizens. Herodotus called Egypt the gift of the Nile. That remains true today. Any perceived threat to the river's flow is treated as a threat to national security. The construction of the GERD has been a source of profound anxiety for Egypt. The primary worry is a significant reduction in water reaching Egypt. Officials are particularly concerned about the initial filling of the dam's massive reservoir. They fear rapid filling could create an immediate water shortage downstream. That would devastate Egyptian farms and communities. The filling period represents a time of great uncertainty. For the first time in modern history, the river's flow can be directly controlled by an upstream nation. Beyond filling, fears extend to long-term operation. The critical question: how will the dam be managed during prolonged drought? The Nile's flow is naturally variable, wet years and dry years. Egypt worries that without a legally binding agreement, there are no guarantees about releases during multi-year droughts. A severe drought plus a large upstream dam could, in a worst-case scenario, lead to a catastrophic water crisis in Egypt that would threaten the very fabric of its society and economy. This concern has shaped Egypt's diplomatic strategy for over a decade. The country insists on a comprehensive, legally binding agreement, and it must govern the long-term operation. Sudan occupies a unique and often complicated position in the Nile dispute. Geographically, it is located directly between Ethiopia and Egypt, meaning the Blue Nile flows out of Ethiopia and through Sudan before it ever reaches the Egyptian border. This placement gives Sudan a distinct set of interests, some of which align with Ethiopia's goals, some of which mirror Egypt's concerns. As a result, Sudan's stance has often shifted, reflecting a careful balancing act between potential benefits and significant risks posed by the GERD. This makes Sudan a pivotal player in the ongoing negotiations. On one hand, Sudan stands to gain several important benefits from the GERD. Sudan could purchase cheap and reliable electricity from Ethiopia. That could help address its energy shortages. The GERD could help regulate the flow of the Blue Nile, which would reduce severe seasonal flooding along Sudan's riverbanks. A more regular flow would let Sudan's dams, like the Rosaires Dam, operate more efficiently. Better storage could potentially boost agricultural output. The safety of its own dams is a paramount concern. A sudden surge from the GERD could overwhelm Sudan's infrastructure. The journey to find a resolution to the Nile dispute has been long and filled with challenges. For more than a decade, Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan. These talks have taken many forms. Direct meetings between water ministers, high-level summits involving heads of state international bodies have also stepped in. African Union, United States, European Union. Throughout these discussions, a few key technical issues have consistently remained at the forefront. One of the most difficult points has been determining the timeline for filling the dam's reservoir. This fundamental disagreement over the pace of filling has been a major stumbling block, reflecting the different priorities of the upstream and downstream nations. A declaration of principles was signed in 2015, which was seen as a positive step, but it lacked the detailed binding mechanisms needed to resolve the core issues. Subsequent rounds of talks have often ended in stalemate, with each side accusing the others of being inflexible. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is not just a political issue. Its impact creates significant ripples across the environmental and economic landscapes of the entire region. Large dams, by their very nature, transform the ecosystems they inhabit. The creation of a vast reservoir behind the GERD has altered the local environment, submerging land and changing the river's natural patterns. Scientists are closely watching how this will affect fish populations. Some depend on natural flood cycles for migration and spawning. The dam also traps the rich sediment the Blue Nile has historically carried downstream, which could affect the fertility of agricultural lands in Sudan and Egypt. From an economic perspective, the dam presents both immense opportunity and significant risk. For Ethiopia, the economic benefits are clear and substantial. The GERD is projected to more than double the country's electricity generation capacity. This surplus power can be sold to neighboring countries, creating a new source of revenue. Domestically, reliable, affordable electricity is expected to attract investment, spur industrialization, and improve quality of life. As of today, October 6, 2025, the situation surrounding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam remains in a delicate state. The dam is built, Ethiopia has proceeded with filling its reservoir in several stages, and it is already beginning to generate electricity. However, a comprehensive, legally binding agreement that satisfies all three parties has not yet been reached. Egypt continues to voice its concerns and call for a finalized deal. Sudan continues to voice its concerns and call for a finalized deal. Ethiopia maintains its right to use the dam for its development. The river continues to flow, yet political tensions persist, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty. Finding a peaceful and cooperative solution is of the utmost importance for the countries involved and for regional stability. The Nile is a shared resource, and a prolonged dispute could escalate into serious conflict with devastating consequences. Conversely, a successful agreement could transform the river into a symbol of cooperation. It could create a model for managing transboundary resources, fostering economic integration, shared prosperity, and lasting peace. The path forward requires continued dialogue, good faith, and willingness to compromise. A durable solution will involve technical elements and political elements. It needs clear data-driven rules for filling an operation, especially during droughts. It also requires building political trust, transparent data sharing, and a joint committee to resolve disputes. Such a framework would give Egypt and Sudan predictability while allowing Ethiopia to pursue development goals. Ultimately, the Blue Nile is a test case with global implications, so this ancient river can sustain future generations.